what's so tricky about technology is it's a tool that really feels like a toy.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That draws you in like a toy.
Right.
Yeah.
It is made to function like a toy.
Welcome to This Whole Life, a podcast for all of us seeking sanity and sanctity, and a place to find joy and meaning through the integration of faith and mental health. I'm Kenna Millay, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm with my husband, Pat Millay, a Catholic speaker, musician, and leader. We invite you to our kitchen table. Okay, not literally, but you're definitely invited into the conversations that we seem to keep having once the kids have scattered off to play and we're left doing the dishes. We're excited to share this podcast for educational purposes. It is not intended as therapy or as a substitute for mental health care. So let's get talking about this whole life. Welcome back to This Whole Life. It is wonderful to be with you, listeners, to be with you, my love.
Wunderbar.
Wunderbar. Thank you so much for choosing to spend time with us and to receive what we would love to offer you. This episode on technology and our children. Pat's been stewing and brewing on this for a while. We're like, we don't get much hate mail. Maybe after this episode. I'm just kidding.
We're angling for anger.
We're just, everyone's got opinions. Everyone's got thoughts. You're going to hear ours today.
Everyone does have opinions and thoughts.
You get to share yours back with us.
My goodness. Well, so my thought process in kind of getting into this idea of technology was to get, I have a pretty good idea of where you stand in terms of your lifelong relationship with technology. Okay.
Sure.
Or maybe lack thereof.
Given that I can't find my phone half of my life.
Given that you still don't know the difference between a reel and a story and a post and a
ways.
So here's my curiosity. Okay. I'm going to throw out a random technological item.
Okay.
And I'm going to start pretty long ago. Okay. And I want you to tell me if you or your family had this thing.
Okay.
And if you have any specific memories about when you got the first one, what that was like for your family. Whatever.
Okay.
Step one, a VCR.
Oh, heck yeah. Absolutely. I don't remember not having a VCR.
You don't?
Had a VCR all the way through grad school. The first time.
You did.
First time grad
yes,
school.
You did.
Yep, sure did. And a lot of Julia Roberts movies on VHS. So
did you do the classic millennial thing from our generation of taping shows off of TV when you were a kid?
I did not.
Or movies when they were on?
Well, okay. I don't think so.
Seriously?
I don't think so. No, I was quite happy to just watch whatever was on. I mean, this was in the day of like Nick at Night and like legit Nickelodeon. And that's just like all I wanted to watch.
But like when there was a movie, you just had purchased movies?
Yeah. No, I don't think
well. Somebody did well for themselves.
I think you underestimate how content I was to watch the same things over and over and over again. So, yeah.
Dude, we had shelves and shelves of recorded movies and TV shows off the TV. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You pirates.
You'd write on the little white part on the right. And, and then if you taped over it, all of a sudden the description was totally wrong.
Right.
And you'd put in one movie and get like
your brother's basketball game.
Yeah. Next up, not a VCR, but a video camera.
No, we never owned. Like, were you actually put a VHS in it?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No.
Seriously?
No, that was for like the news station. No, those honking things.
I have a specific memory of us getting the news station type of camera. I was living in Springfield, Illinois, when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old or something like that. My dad came home with the ridiculous on the shoulder video camera with the eyepiece that you would record like ballet recitals and stuff with. It was so obnoxious. It's hilarious that our phones now have taken the place of that thing.
That is a commitment.
It was a commitment, yes.
To moving images.
Yes, that's right. But now we have family videos that we can all laugh at each other over.
It's very sweet.
How about, did you have a Game Boy?
No.
Never?
Okay, I'm the oldest by 6 years, and then there were two more girls. My brother is 14 years younger than me.
Okay.
So we had, I don't know if I'm spoiling your next one, but we had a Super NES that was the one and only that we had until my brother was like a teenager and I was long gone, right?
Yep.
He was 4 when I left the house. So no, we were not that interested in video games and definitely not handheld that I can recall.
Wow.
I know. How old were you when you got your Game Boy?
That is remarkable. I never had a Game Boy ever.
You had was Sega Game Gear?
I had a Game Gear.
Game Gear.
That's right. Yes. It was color.
Your Team Sonic.
It was horizontally
Yeah,
instead of vertically oriented.
Yes.
It was pretty sweet. I was not cool enough to have a Game Boy when it first came out. Yeah. And by the time I got on board, or should I say my parents allowed me to be on board the video game train, it was Game Gear all the way.
Okay. How old were you when you got it?
Mid-90s. Let's say...
Like early teen?
Yeah, 14, 15, maybe. Early high school, something like that, okay. I'm going to say. Maybe 8th grade at the earliest. Yeah. I'm not sure.
I think we got our Super NES in 8th grade. 8th grade Christmas.
Only because I already know the answer to this question.
I knew you were going to troll me with this.
Did you have a pager?
A pager. Yes, I had a pager. You think this is so entertaining, but the thing is, this was normal where I grew up.
Yeah, for doctors and drug dealers, it sure was. You're right.
And also, like 7th graders in the greater Orlando area. Like I can distinctly remember when my friend Tiffany got a teal with like sparkles pager, and we were like, "That's so amazing!" And mine was this like ugly. It looked like a doctor's pager. It was like black with an orange like silence button. Yeah, that was about it. And then we would like learn all the different messages you can send to each other if you turn the pager upside down with it like 143, but then like hello.
Oh yeah,
which
right.
is like, what is that? 43770. Whatever.
We did that with calculators in the great state of Iowa. Yes. And some of those messages were...
Well, I get that y'all didn't have satellites above you in Iowa.
This is one of the great cultural differences between Florida and Iowa, apparently. I knew one human being with a pager.
And it was your dad?
And it was my surgeon father. Correct. Apparently you needed to be called to the ER like he did. I'm not sure. Did you or a family member ever have a car phone that was attached to your car?
You know what? I think my grandpa did. When we would come visit up here in Minnesota, I can remember, the very Zach Morris looking with the actual cord, like connected. But I don't think our family went straight to cell phones. Pagers and then to cell phones.
Again, ooh. We for sure had a car phone.
Did you? Did you use it?
The minivan. Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it did have the cord, which is hilarious. Like it had a speakerphone function, thanks be to God, or else we all would have died. But why did it have a cord? Like, were you going to hold it to your ear? Like,
I think you were.
Crazy person.
Maybe like in the original design, they were like, do not use this while the car is. Like while the motor vehicle is being operated, like they envision you like pulling off
in a McDonald's parking lot and making a phone call.
Exactly.
Goodness.
Maybe that's what they had in mind.
This is a bit off the board. How about a laser disc player?
No, but I do remember my neighbor Candace had a Laserdisc player, and all I remember is that her brother was obsessed with the Terminator. He was like 3. And whenever we babysat, that's all we would watch. And like the end of the Terminator, like the scary part, that's like all he wanted to watch. And that is my only experience with a Laserdisc. I'm
sure he's in really good shape today.
That's all I got. I hope he's doing well. Did you have a Laserdisc?
We watched one Laserdisc in the school one time, and that's the only time I remember seeing it. It was such a ridiculous machine, the size of a vinyl album.
Yes,
but
way more fragile and
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
What about Walkman or Discman?
Oh my gosh.
Either or both.
Obsessed. Definitely had a Walkman. Definitely a Discman. Okay. Whenever I would do anything naughty, my parents, the way they would punish me was take away my boombox or take away my Discman or Walkman. I had a pink boombox that we would blast in the bathroom. My mom had to put a nail polish mark. I hope she's listening to this and remembering this. She had to put a nail polish mark of like on the volume dial of how loud we could let it be because I would like rock out to some Amy Grant and Mariah Carey like at obscene hours and wake up the whole household. But yeah, no, definitely if they wanted to punish me, just with that Discman and yep.
Is that where our daughter gets it?
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
She also loves her music.
You?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, both.
Both?
Loved them both. Yep. I have very solid memories of Discman years in high school of just like almost burning out CDs.
Oh yeah.
To the point of being useless.
Falling asleep to them. I mean, the batteries you'd have to keep.
Oh yeah. Batteries. That's right.
I was a rower, and we would take these, these long trips on buses, like 8 hours overnight on a bus, and just how many packs of batteries I would plow through in a weekend, listening to the Dixie Chicks, like sleeping on the floor of a coach bus, going to head of the hooch in Georgia or whatever I was doing.
So then how about a real, any iteration, honest to goodness iPod?
It would have been when we were married. I'll be honest. I am so tech defunct and have zero interest in learning that if I weren't married to you, I don't know that I have an iPhone. Like, I am so not interested in
Your technology development did cap out at about age 25.
So I think the idea of an iPod is, I was like, wow, that's not like, and then you have to have a computer. I don't know. I don't know if I can do this, guys. So no, I've never had an iPod to my memory.
Never ever?
I don't think so. We maybe had an iPod Touch. Wasn't that like the little bitty? What's the tiny?
That's
or the
you're
mini
thinking iPod Shuffle.
Shuffle. Okay, maybe I had
That's
one of
what
those.
I had.
Oh, okay.
And you probably used mine.
Maybe I used yours. Yeah, but no,
that was
I had
with,
no
with
interest.
no screen even.
Yeah,
you
just
put
the
MP3s on
forward
it.
back button.
And then you,
stop,
yeah, right.
play.
You just would shuffle through
Yeah.
whatever MP3s you put on there.
Yeah.
It was great for running because it was like
Yes.
literally the size
And like
of a
clipped
quarter.
to like
right,
the top
it
of your
was clipped.
shorts.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was functional.
Probably used
Yeah.
yours. Okay.
How about a flip phone?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
When did
For
you get
sure.
a flip phone?
Well, okay. So truth be told, I remember my very first phone. I was probably 15, and it was actually a flat phone. It was it looked like a remote control. It was blue and sparkly.
Oh my goodness.
And then after that, I got a flip phone.
Wow.
So I don't know, like 17,
That
maybe.
is-
Got a
okay.
flip phone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At 2.
Yeah. I had a flip phone. I have very specific memories. I hated the idea of cell phones when they came out in college. I hated the fact
They
that
didn't come out in college. You got one in college, but
Well,
you saw people using
I did not
them
have one in college. No, I hated. They came out before that, but in terms of like cultural adoption,
Yeah.
when like most people were getting cell phones, it was when you and I were in college, early 2000s, and people walking around on campus that I could hear their side of the conversation.
okay, you have a snarky look on your face. Your wife
can't-
was one of those people, so just stop.
I just can't tell you how weird that was for me. I am that guy now, but at the
I'm glad you
very
think it's weird.
beginning,
That's healthy.
It was just like it was like odd and off-putting. I hated what the cell phone stood for. I have since apparently become a hypocrite. But I didn't get a cell phone until 2004 after graduation from college, and I like spitefully told the guy at Verizon, I want a phone that can make and receive phone calls.
Yeah.
I don't want a camera. I don't want any stupid apps. I don't want none of this stuff. And then whatever, the wheels came off a little bit later on probably, but 2004.
2004. Okay.
And then your first smartphone, do you remember?
Yes, we were just talking about this the other day. I'm going to go with, I think it was after our second was born. So like 2013, I'm going to say.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think you were like 2010.
Only shortly before that. Yeah. A little before that.
Does that make you feel better to say
I
that?
lapped you. Yes. I was slacking in the pager realm, but I made up for
Okay,
it in
enough.
smartphones.
Get off my pager. What? Oh, we haven't done highs and hards yet.
Well, that was fun.
Yes.
Yeah, we should probably do that. Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that.
Okay. High and hard, babe.
Okay, goodness. So, I mean, the high is simple enough. We just have gotten off a couple months of like all kinds of traveling and great speaking opportunities, meeting just amazing folks who are doing great work out there in the world and getting to support the good stuff that they're doing. But one of our travels took us to Anchorage, Alaska in October, which is totally off the board for us. I never really, I had a lot of dreams to go to Alaska. I had no real plans to go to Alaska. So the good folks up there, Kate and Kevin and all the folks had us come speak at one of the high schools and parishes up there. And man, the people who live in Alaska freaking love Alaska. And I totally get it. I will never move there, but I get if you are designed a certain way and if you see the world in a certain way, that is the place for you.
Yeah.
The beauty, the wildlife, the kind of like the like communal bonding that you get from living in a place that's pretty harsh for 6-7 months out of the year. You know, it was so beautiful, so stunning. The people were even better than the surroundings. It was just really great. So what a blessing to be there and to be there with you. Being there alone would have been really annoying, but being there, not really annoying. It would have been less exciting, but being there with you is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my high, Alaska. The hard lately has been reconfronting some of my anger issues that have surfaced as a parent, as a father. That's been like an ongoing understanding, ongoing self-confrontation that I've had to go through for many, many years now. And just recently have had it come to the forefront again. So just realizing that apparently that battle is not done yet, and it likely will never be, but just figuring out how to communicate mostly with our kids in a way that is healthy and level appropriate discipline to them like a parent needs to, and not acting out of rage and just like shouting down our kids when they're doing things that I don't like. So dealing with my own weaknesses in that area is always hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me what you figure out. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yep. And you?
So I would say my hard lately is we're not quite out of the woods of little people with just perpetual runny noses and coughs and what have you. And I realized last night as I looked at the clock and was like, we have been doing bedtime routine with the youngest 5 for like an hour and 7 minutes. And just like the extras that are added on when they're sick, right? You gotta suction the noses. You gotta rub the vapor rub. You gotta fill up the diffusers with eucalyptus. You've got to, just allay all their fears about what it's going to be like to cough and know you can't sleep with a cough drop, and you just like it's just so much more, and they're just feeling run down, and so they need more snuggles, and I'm just feeling run down, and I'd also like them to stop coughing in my face, but we're working on that. So
asking too much, babe. I'm so sorry.
So that's my seasonal hard.
Yes.
And I'll try not to bring that up too many times on this podcast. Okay. My high is that this past weekend I did an intensive trauma training. There's a new modality that I'm learning called EMDR, which has been around for a long time. It's significantly research backed and based and proven to be effective for trauma. But the high was being in this class and just talking about our brain, and like cannot help but be overwhelmed by God's creative design, because one of the premises of this trauma modality is that the brain seeks healing. And like, that is just such good news, right? Like, okay, then we use therapy, we use, other means to help facilitate that healing. But like this idea of like, yeah, like we reach for thriving, like we are made to pursue fullness of life and flourishing. And I wish it had been a setting and an organization where I could have spoken about that in more explicit faith terms. But just to know it for myself and to reconfirm it for myself and to come back into the office with like more zeal of like, I want to cooperate with God's natural design for us, was pretty amazing. So
that's pretty sweet. Yeah.
That is my high.
Glad you got to do that. And you had some really significant reflections that came out of that too, both for work and for you personally. And it was really beautiful. That was great.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
You ready
where
to,
are we going? You're going to teach me. You are the master here.
You ready to annoy some people?
I'm ready to help equip
including
people.
Maybe each of us. Yeah, totally. I get it. No, so today what we're going to talk about is just an initial kind of primer around some of the mental health and I would say even spiritual health implications of technology use among kids and adolescents, and maybe in particular social media within the realm of technology. So technology could mean anything from a laptop in your family's kitchen all the way down to your phone, your iPad, a device that your school gives you even to use for allegedly homework, although you and I both know 17-year-olds, you don't really use it for that. So the way that technology impacts our kids and our teens. And I think really genuinely the first place to start is just to acknowledge that you and I and if you're listening right now, parents in the world, we have to be ready to be open to this kind of a conversation. I am always shocked. This happened actually in Alaska when we were there. I am always shocked and maybe not too surprised, I guess, at people's willingness to immediately run to the defense of technology and social media the moment it's challenged. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. I think part of it maybe is this human inclination to be like, well, I just want you to tell me that I'm okay. Like, I like this stuff. I don't want to give it up. So I want to be reassured that it's actually not that bad. Well,
and so maybe that's a good place to clarify here. Like, is that where you're going with this? Are you trying to lead us all to stone tablets and chisels? Is that what you are hoping could happen?
Are you trying to steal my thunder for the end of the episode?
Well, okay.
No, that's it's a really good starting place. Yeah,
I don't want people to
turn off because
Correct,
they're
right.
thinking like, oh my gosh, she's going to propose some archaic
No, that's
way
good.
of communicating.
That's what I'm joking about. No, that is not
Okay.
what I think is the final answer. The people who have done way more research on this than me, that is not their final answer either.
Okay.
It's not to eliminate technology from the lives of our kids at all. So we're not going there. But it does probably take a little bit of good, healthy humility and openness to just be ready to listen, be ready to hear what the Lord is saying to me, first of all, in this very worldly area, and what my kids need from me in terms of technology and training them to encounter a world that is never going to go back to stone tablets or even big 1 foot deep TVs, right? And we're not going backwards in terms of technology. So how do we equip our children to live and function in a world where they can be healthy and holy and happy around the technology that they're using, right? And one of the main reasons that it's valuable to be open and humble about this is that the ties between technology and social media use and mental health, their effects on mental health, especially for children and adolescents, is pretty much undeniable at this point.
The connections are clear.
Right. I think early on in terms of tech use, and especially when we say technology, most of us now mean something in the direction of smartphones, tablets, things like that.
A handheld device.
A handheld device, some kind of a screen like that that's internet connected. That started to really pick up, not necessarily right in 2007 where the iPhone came out for the first time, but in the early 2010s when you started having massive adoption of smartphones among adolescents, you started having social media platforms that weren't just social networking, like, hey, let's connect with a high school classmate I haven't talked to in 20 years, but social media, like I'm sharing
creating
posts.
content.
I'm creating content.
Yeah.
I'm liking, I'm retweeting, I'm commenting, I'm sharing, I'm direct messaging. I am living now in a tech universe where every post is measurable, it's consumable, that the account and maybe even the person behind the account becomes a product, not just a person. We would call those people maybe influencers now in the early 2020s. So that kind of a world has had significant measurable effects on the mental health of our kids. And a lot of the stuff that we'll pull from in this episode is in the great research of people like Gene Twangy, who wrote a book called iGen, about the effect of technology on the current kind of youth generation. Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, not the other kind of hate. He wrote a book called The Anxious Generation about the way that social media and technology have created, or at least been a major contributor to the current mental health crisis of teens and young adults. And the stats, like I said, are undeniable. I'm going to throw a few out here. I'll put them in the show notes as well with maybe some graphs and things that are helpful. A lot of the stats have to do with Gen Z, which right now in 2020 would be people who are between the ages.
2024, babes.
So what did I say? 2020.
But that was fun.
Which right now in 2024 would be people between the ages of 18 and 27, roughly. People in that age range currently spend an average of 5 hours a day on social media. Not technology,
Right,
not
right.
FaceTiming their
Media
friends,
specifically.
not texting people, on social media.
So we're talking like social media platforms.
Correct. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, 5 hours a day on average. And 23% of Gen Z spends 7 hours or more a day on social media. So the amount of social media that they're consuming and living in, kind of surrounded by, is significant. 46% of adolescents have said lately that social media made them feel worse about their bodies, which again, I don't think is surprising anecdotally to many of us, that especially on a platform like Instagram, maybe, where we're living in a world of filters and very specifically curated content that's just not real. There's no other way to say it. It's just not real. And then you introduce some of the AI things that are coming up now in terms of images and videos, comparing our real lives, our real bodies to this false presentation of humanity. We can never compete with that, right? Major depression has gone up since 2010 significantly. So this is that kind of turning point of when all the social media technology started to really hit home for folks. For girls in Gen Z, it's up 145%. And for boys, it's up 161%.
Whoa.
So again, in 2024, that's in 14 years that it's more than doubled. This is so interesting to me. Almost half of Gen Z, so again, that 18 to 24 range, wishes that certain social media platforms didn't exist at all. So literally half of them, 50%, say Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now, they wish that never existed. TikTok, almost 40% or 47%, so almost half. And TikTok is one of the most used apps among 18 to 27-year-olds. And the people who use it most are saying, I wish it didn't exist. And what I think is so fascinating about that is what they didn't say is, I want to stop using it. What they said is, I wish it never existed in the first place, which maybe means a few things. Maybe they're identifying the way that it's harmful, not just to them individually, but to society at large. But maybe it's this part, and I think this shows up in other research as well. Maybe it's this feeling that like, if it exists, I have to use it.
Right. I feel compelled.
Correct.
I don't feel like I have agency.
I have no
choice.
freedom to be off of it, because it's either I use TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and have friends, or I don't use those platforms and I am a social pariah.
Yeah, I'm isolated and I'm cut off.
I have no connection anymore if I don't connect in this way.
So sad.
Right. And the final one is that every segment, every kind of gender and different background breakdown of 18 to 27-year-olds, out of all those segments, at least 30% of every single segment says that social media has had a negative impact on their emotional health. So at least 30% or more of 18 to 27-year-olds say that it hurts their emotional health. And the way that Jonathan Haidt specifically puts that is, if there was a product in the world that actively harmed more than 1 out of 10 teenagers that used it, or young adults that used it, it actively hurt them, there would be congressional legislation to ban that product, right? But for whatever reason, we as a culture have become comfortable giving social media a pass, and not even legislative bans. I don't know that a lot of people are angling for that, and I'm not either. But not even asking questions like, is this helpful or harmful? Are there ways that we need to control the access that preteens and teenagers and young adults have to certain apps like this? So it's a long way of saying that there is a problem going on culturally, mental health, spiritual health, I think as well, for our young people. I think for many of us as parents, anecdotally, we see it.
Yeah.
I think of parents all the time that I talk to who complain about their kids just hiding behind a screen all day long. And they feel like they're lost their kid when they got them a smartphone. You know, they don't talk on family trips. They don't talk at the dinner table. They don't really even see their friends in real life anymore. They're just interacting through a screen mediated by these apps and things. I think a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us feel the kind of anecdotal weight of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think about, mainly in my office, I'm working with the parents who also, I think, are saying, I don't have agency in this, are feeling like it's out of control, like it's bigger than them. I know that I was speaking with someone recently who the media was the issue, right? What the teen was coming in for was related to the issue. And the parent said, but my child is so fragile that I'm worried that taking it away, even though I know this is the problem, I'm actually worried that taking it away will exacerbate the problem. And so just feeling like their hands are tied. And I'm like, what a terrible position to be in, to not feel like you are in the driver's seat and able to make active, intentional choices for what you cognitively, rationally know is right for your child. Like, what is that saying about us?
So what is a Catholic, and I would even say kind of a mentally healthy approach or vision of technology? We have talked before, and we may have a whole episode on it later on, about the distinction between tools and toys, right? That tools have a specific use. If you use a tool for what it's made for, you can do great things. You can build a house with a hammer and a saw. If you use a tool for something it was not made for, you can do great harm. And you can really hurt somebody with a hammer or a saw if you're not using it to build, right? A toy is something different. A toy is just entertainment. And toys are nice in the sense that they can't really do much harm, but they're made for entertainment. That's fine. What's so tricky about technology is it's a tool that really feels like a toy. Right?
That draws you in like a toy.
Right.
Yeah.
It is made to function like a toy. And even the developers of certain apps and games, like they hire the entire fleets of psychologists to help them make the most addicting app to keep the kids' eyeballs on the screen of the phone and using their app, their product, right? Because that's how they make money, off of ads and in-app purchases and things like that. There was another quote from The Anxious Generation where Jonathan Haidt was quoting the developer of some app, and I can't remember which one now. It might have been Instagram or Snapchat, one of the social media apps, who acknowledged that one of the competing products, if you want to call it that, in their marketing strategy was the sleep of their consumers. That their goal actually was to keep their consumers awake longer. It was Netflix. That's what it was. Netflix acknowledging
for sure,
that sleep is one of the limits to their market share. And the more they can make their shows addicting and have just autoplay that goes to the next episode that you don't really decide
promote binging,
or choose,
binge watching.
promote binge watching, that they can fight against the competitor of sleep and just health for their consumers, right?
I mean, I think I just want to like underscore, and we are not on here, like I do not espouse like broad stroke bashing of industries and, you know, what have you. But I guess like as I'm listening to you, Pat, I'm just aware of we cannot outsource decisions for our life's health and decisions for parenting our children to be healthy, right? Like we cannot assume that a culture in a world that really doesn't share our values, and I would even say is like counterintuitive to our value, you know, like stands in opposition to things that we desire, like self-gift and self-sacrifice and a life of virtue and a life of simplicity and obedience, like that. How can we assume then that a culture that creates these products is looking out for our best interest? And so, yeah, I think our hope in creating this episode is certainly to offer some concrete data and food for thought, but also to just like, yeah, share in a collective, like, hey, can we support each other in this very hard work of being more intentional, being awake, and being actively engaged in discerning decisions for ourselves and for our children.
Bingo. And that's really helpful. I feel like I may have started to come down a little bit hard and like villainize the existence of technology or social media in the first place. I don't mean to do that. But that is a finer
I mean, it
point,
is pretty
right?
angering to me. So I'm just like, I'm with you there. But I don't want to get lost about like, what is it that we're actually saying here? Like, it's about educate yourself, read these resources, check out the data. Like, it's really clear. And to not is to choose to live in ignorance. So,
and it's helpful, I think, with that kind of a mindset to acknowledge that when you and I will eventually hand our child a cell phone, a smartphone, and say, you know, at the beginning with many, many limitations, but knowing even then, even when we're not giving them access to every app or to unfettered internet access, things like that, even then, what I'm handing my child is a tool designed by people who desire to make money off of my child. And they'll do whatever it takes to make money off of my child.
And for them, it means engaging, right? How do they make money?
Correct.
They engage my child.
Right.
They have my child. They have me. Let's not even talk about our children. We don't have kids with cell phones yet, right? So for me, this is about me. This is about me looking at my habits. This is me having some really hard considerations of like, what am I modeling for my kids? Last night, one of our sons was reading a book. It's a book he's reading for his literature class about, it's historical fiction of the time of Jesus's birth, but he was reading the book and I was scrolling on Instagram. I hadn't had a chance to look at, yesterday was my birthday, I was looking at birthday messages and I was like, oh gross, like what an image right now, like he's got the book and I'm like ignoring him, and I like shut my phone down. I was like, hey dude, what's the book about? You're loving it, tell me all about the plot. Anyway, so this is about me just as much as about our children.
Yep. So maybe I would propose maybe a Catholic vision of technology, and one that you and I have talked about many, many times, Kenna, is finding a healthy middle ground to train our children in the healthy use of this tool. That the first way I think that we can go wrong is just giving a 10-year-old a smartphone with no guidelines, rules, or limitations whatsoever.
I'm going to say a 16-year-old. I'm gonna up the ante. I'm gonna say a 16-year-old with no rules and no parental controls. I'm not for that either. You can send the hate mail, but I'm just coming out. Okay.
That's your hill. That's great.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
So I think that's the first way that children are not prepared well to function in a healthy way in a technology landscape, is to be given, just have the internet dropped in their lap with every access to pornography, apps, games, connections with strangers that are 55 years old and do not have their best interest at heart.
Retail, body image, consumerism. Yep.
But I think what's interesting is the other extreme that you and I have seen a lot with folks that we know is the extreme of like, for lack of a better term, the Amish approach to technology, which is because of all the dangers and out of a legitimate, rightful fear of the dangers it holds for my kids, my kid will never have a phone, ever. And, maybe they'll have a phone when they move out and get a job of their own. Then that's their prerogative, right? But under my home, my child will never have a cell phone, which I gotta say, I think there are dangers in that as well. The best metaphor I can always connect to it is, we would never just have our child give them the keys to a car when they're 18, having no practice, no training, having never had a license before, and say, "Get out there, kid. Good luck on the interstate." The fact is that you and I as parents have the grave and really beautiful responsibility to train our children about how to relate to a fallen, broken world in a way that prepares them for it and doesn't just shelter them from it as long as possible.
Because this is just another way where we get to live out our values through the everyday stuff, right? Pat, you and I have expectations with each other around where technology gets to be and not be in our home, times that it does and does not get used when we're together, or accountability even when we're apart from each other. These are all ways that we live out those values, and they get actual legs on them and move and walk around, and we become the people that we feel called to be. So you're absolutely right. Like, this role as parents to, number one, begin by modeling this and doing the hard work ourselves, and not living in a state of hypocrisy for our children. But knowing that it is hard to have controls, knowing that it is hard to see the group text, chain growing, and I'm resisting because it's crazy homework time and meal making time, and this would not be supportive of the ultimate value of serving my family. So beginning there, but then with our kids, like, this is about something more than just, I want to be better than the statistics. Like, this is about what kind of life of flourishing am I allowing technology to be supportive of, and where it stops being supportive, do I put it back in its place?
Right.
Cut it short.
Yeah. And it's up to every parent, if you're a parent listening right now, it's up to every parent to make prudent, wise, loving decisions for each individual child. And even different children in one family are going to need different things, right? You and I kind of have probably a few children, but one in particular who we will need to pull them back from desiring too much exposure to technology too soon. And we're going to need to set up specific guardrails to make sure that I think it's okay to at least say that much, that he isn't getting into places that are dangerous for him and harmful for him. And on the other end of the spectrum, we just had a conversation with our daughter a few weeks ago where she was using technology, not getting into spaces of the internet that you and I thought were morally problematic or even super harmful to her, but just using technology in a way that you and I had not approved
It
of.
wasn't consistent with our values.
Correct.
Like, it was not used in a way that,
correct.
was consistent.
Right. So
with
she
what
knew
we
the
were
expectations was using technology in a way that was not consistent with what we had agreed upon. She loves listening to music, but was using one of our phones for this other like internet type stuff. Right. So we had a conversation with her. It was a very good conversation, hard in some ways. But at one point she said to you and I don't think I can be trusted with using your phone for music. I don't think it's going to work because I can't trust myself to only do what I'm supposed to do. I can't use it.
The other stuff is just way too tantalizing.
And you said to her, no, that's not okay. The point is not to keep you away from technology, to keep you from using it. The point is to slowly and gradually, as it's developmentally appropriate, help you grow in self-discipline and self-control.
And so I want to be specific, right? That with that, we not only said to her, no, we are not just going to fly to this other end of the spectrum and cut you off entirely. But we said, this is showing us what just happened is teaching Daddy and I that we've got to help scaffold you a little more slowly and a little more securely. So we're going to take it back. There was a time, of abstaining from the use of technology for her. We're going to take it back, and then we're going to build you back up. And we put some different mechanisms in place so that she can experience success of being in the driver's seat around technology. We didn't want her feeling like I don't have freedom. Either I'm going to have access to it and I'm just going to do all the things that I feel like doing and not listen to the rules, or I can't have freedom and I just can't even have access to it. Like neither of those would be truly free, and neither of those would be using it as the tool that it's meant to be. And it's a great tool. It's a beautiful thing that helps her. It fosters her love of music and choreography and what have you. So we would be so sad to see that gone for her. But I want to be clear that we didn't just say to her, like, no, you don't know yourself. We're going to make you use this. Like, no. We said, yeah, you're right. Like, this is showing us we got to pull it back and take smaller steps toward your sense of agency with this.
Right. So if that's a vision that you and I are proposing for folks to take in, to consider, to pray about, to talk about with their spouse, these are things that you and I, the way that you and I look at technology at least, what are some ways that might look in flesh? What are some practical approaches to having conversations with kids, setting up the kind of relationship with technology in our family that is consistent with our values? And the first one that you've already hinted at, Kenna, is that you and I as parents, and we as adults out there in the world, we have the great duty and opportunity to model the vision that
This is the hardest one, folks.
It's the worst.
This is when you're like, parenting, is it all that it's cracked up to be?
Because it's so easy to like blame the teenagers, those kids and their screens. And the fact is, like,
it's just humans.
I am just as bad.
Yes, like, it's just we humans and our lack of self-control.
All human brains are susceptible to the kinds of addicting stuff that they create apps to be, right?
Yes.
So modeling the vision. So you and I have had kind of some progressive conversations over the past 6 months, year maybe, about ways that you and I want to start modeling technology use better for our kids as they're coming into the ages of really being attentive to what we're doing as we start laying down rules for them pretty soon. We don't want it to be anything inconsistent with what we do. So some of the things we've done lately is not having any phones upstairs in our room, in our house, including in our bedroom, which we used to use them for alarms. We would like
play music
at the end of the night. We would play music,
show each other videos.
Right. And photos. Some of that was really fine, like an alarm, listening to music, whatever. It's fine. Some of it was just really not fine. And it wasn't actively harmful necessarily, but it was interfering with the connection that you and I get to have at the end of the night, unmitigated by somebody else's content. So leaving our phones downstairs so you and I don't get lost in the endless scroll, right? Which meant that you and I had the great opportunity to buy an alarm clock.
Guys, they still exist.
Like it was 1994.
Amazon, very happy to sell them to you, or Walmart, Target, whatever. It's
beautiful.
Your retailer of choice.
So you wake up to classical music every morning now. It's great.
I
do. We have, been more consistent with kind of shutting down screen time at the end of the night. So not getting our brains all wired and fired up by screen time and
all that blue light.
Blue light is what they tell me. And then even I'm trying to do a better job of just like docking my phone at home, quote unquote. So not just carrying it around the house in my pocket for anyone to reach me at any time, but plugging it in, putting it on the kitchen counter and just leaving it. And if I need it, it's there. It's fine. But setting up this thing more for me than anyone else, but also for folks in our, greater network, that you and I are not just eternally available.
Yeah. Always accessible.
Which has been one of the great problems of this social media technology age, that we expect people to be at our beck and call 24/7, that when someone leaves work, they're not really done with work because they have their email on their phone, and their clients or colleagues all have their cell phone number, so they can be contacted at any point in time. So just setting up a pretty healthy boundary, I think, of like, right now I am with these people in my home, and if I need my phone, it's right there. If I don't need it, it's not going to come looking for me.
Yeah, that challenge of like do work at work and do home at home. Yeah. I think for me, another thing has been trying to make that transition of the buzz that being connected to technology, you know, whether it's emails. I mean, honestly, email is my greatest culprit. Email and text, I guess, even more so than social media for me. But like the drive home from work, like really making the intentional shift of like, this is a different pace. There's a different level of stimulation that I'm going to get when I get home, you know, having conversations with 5-year-olds. So yeah, these are very concrete ways to help set up those boundaries. And again, to get back in the driver's seat. I will die saying that, won't I? Yes, we are made to be in charge of this, to be the consumers, not the consumed. So
I think another good practical approach is to start having or continue having really good open conversations with your spouse and obviously with your kids around technology. So asking questions or having conversations on topics like the things that you hope for your children. What dreams do you have for them? They don't have to be their dreams, and this isn't living vicariously through your kids, but to say to your child, like, I want you to have a full, free life. I don't want you to feel like you're addicted to your phone and that you can't forge solid friendships in college or as an adult because you don't know how to interact with somebody face to face. I want you to be able to have difficult conversations and not just pull your phone out when things get hard or awkward as a way out of a difficult moment.
Numb it out.
Right.
Dissociate.
Right. Yeah. I want you to have relationships and friendships that aren't competitive, that aren't measured by likes and retweets and views. I want you to have like stable and healthy and freely given friendships and relationships. And to say to a child, like, I really enjoy being around you and I want you to be a active member of this family. Like if you were disengaged from this family, or maybe you're at the point where you have maybe a 15, 16-year-old who is a little bit disengaged, being able to say to them, you know, maybe bluntly, but lovingly, when you are disengaged on your phone, I miss you. And I really do enjoy being around you. And I want you to be connected to me because I have this great desire to be connected to you, you know, even saying to a kid why they are important to you. Why does it matter that they're connected to the family or that you want them to have a great life? What do you value about them? I think it's totally fitting and healthy to have conversations with kids of any age. And, you know, the conversation looks different for a 6-year-old than it does for a 16-year-old. What you want to protect your children from. Yeah. That there are real dangers out there. And not allowing a kid to use Snapchat when they're 12 is not because you don't trust the 12-year-old. It's because you don't trust the people that they might interact with out in the world who don't know them. They don't care about them and they might take advantage of them, you know, acknowledging that there are dangers in the world, not creating this culture of fear in our families or in our children, not making them afraid to move, but helping them to acknowledge, it is my job to make sure that you are loved and that you are healthy. And some of these apps, some of these devices just are not going to be healthy for you to use.
Because a 12-year-old doesn't have the development to discern that for themselves, right? That is our job as parents. And really, up until they leave our home. Like, I mean, we know that their brains are still cooking until their mid-20s. And so they need to borrow that sense of discernment and that sense of prudence from us, not only in our modeling of it, but also in making those choices for them and helping set up those guardrails, right? The guardrails become further and further apart as they get older and the lane becomes wider and they have increasing freedom. But being thoughtful about that and being clear about it. And how often do we say, Pat, to our 4 and 5-year-olds who want something like, I know you want that thing. And also my mommy job is to help keep you safe. And so therefore, or to help you know God better. And so therefore we're going to go to mass or we're going to, you know, whatever. I remember the other night, one of our boys, like we love watching Costin Mayer, this husband-wife dance choreography duo. And like one of our sons in particular, like loves watching those videos with me. And he knows that I will jump on the phone to spend some time with him, snuggle with him and watch these videos. So the other night he asked me, can we watch some Costin Mayer? And I said, no. And he goes, why not? Well, we're not doing anything. Like the dishes are done. You know, he kind of looked around and I said, no, it's okay. It's not an inappropriate time. Just sometimes, bud, it's good to say no. Like it's good to train ourselves and to continue disciplining and conditioning ourselves to remember that like we can do this, that feeling out of control, feeling like we are compelled to consume, that's a dangerous spot. And I don't want to be there and I don't want you to be there. So we're not going to watch Costumere. You can play a card game with me, which really disappointed him, but that's okay. Until he beat me in phase 10.
And then he rallied.
And then he was fine.
And one of the other topics, I think, kind of to that end as well, is talking to our kids about what the ways that you do want them to use technology. So being able to say to a kid, because it's easy for a kid to kind of like go to end of the world mode and be like, my mom will never let me have a phone. She's the worst. And being able to say to a child like, no, that is your irrational brain talking. And that's okay. What I'm saying to you is I do want you to have a phone someday, eventually, but not today. I want you to be able to function in a healthy way with a phone, with social media, with email. I want you to be able to use those things well, and I'm going to help you do that. But today is not that day.
Yeah, I think too, and I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but I think what I hear a lot of is parents feeling who maybe desire things like we're talking about, Pat, but feeling in isolation, feeling like other parents in their kids' friend group or in the school or even administration.
Yeah.
I know I had someone recently say to me that after some really, really unfortunate and devastating things happened for their child related to media and the technology that the school was providing, went to the superintendent and spoke about it to him. And he said, we're going with the culture. Like the culture is moving forward with technology. And so you got to figure out how to help your kid then. Cause we're not changing our approach right now. And so to, I don't know, it may sound silly that in a podcast, like we could offer community, but like, I mean this genuinely. You're hearing how my red fire breathing dragon is coming out about this, right? Like, I mean this authentically, that like we care deeply about this. And if you are feeling like you are alone, feeling isolated, like reach out to us. We would love to be able to walk with you, support you, be community for you in this, because this is so deeply important. As our kids are coming of age, we're seeing how important it is for us to feel the strength, to feel the camaraderie of other parents who are resisting this and are fighting this fight. I don't know what it would be like, Pat, for us to say to our almost 14-year-old daughter, no, you can't have a phone, if all of her other 9 out of 10 friends did. Yeah. But that's not our situation. And I praise God for that. And I don't know how often that's going to happen for us, but for our first child, I'm feeling pretty grateful. So anyway, I think that cannot be, I empathize with those who are feeling like, yeah, but I'm the only one who feels this way and wants this in my life, in my marriage, in my kids' friend group.
And Jonathan Haidt talks about that kind of communal power as well. And he says specifically, like, it doesn't take half of your child's class not having phones to give you a little bit of peace and relief, knowing that you're not standing on an island by yourself. He says, if you can connect with 2 or 3 other families and you can agree together, maybe your kids' friends, their parents, if you can agree together, our kids are not going to have a phone until they're 14. Our kids are not going to use social media until they're 16. Even that alone can provide so much incredible peace and support for parents, just to know that someone is in this with them, right?
I don't know if this is helpful, but I just saw on social media that Joanna and Chip Gaines do not give their children social media until they leave the house. So if you feel like you are not going to be a cool, fun parent, okay, Chip and JoJo, they're doing it. They're doing it.
One of the other kind of practical things I think I'd love to offer is to, especially maybe for parents who have already gone down the road of technology with their kids and are wishing that they could unring the bell a little bit, kind of pull back on some of the use. Whether you're considering giving a kid technology now or never, whatever the kind of coming to the middle looks like, is to not just remove technology and leave a vacuum and a void in the life of our kids, but to fill that space with really good things, engaging, joyful, energy producing things.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me, earlier this week, one of our kids, he seemed like whenever he was bored, he would just start to ask about screens. Like, can I watch this? Can I watch this video? Can I watch a Dude Perfect thing? Can I whatever? And so I said to you, he had this long break coming up from school, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to fight him every hour of the day about screens. And we had a couple appointed times that we were going to watch media as a family. And so I said to you, can you ask him, go look up a recipe, pick something, send me the ingredient list. I'll buy it on the way home from work. And that's what they can do tonight when they're babysitting, as opposed to just zoning out and watching a movie. So you're totally right, Pat. Like, they need our help in directing them toward like, what would give me that similar experience of feeling alive, feeling like I'm full of joy, feeling like I've accomplished something, feeling, that, mimicking that dopamine hit that we do get from tech and social media. Again, it's going to take work on our part, but it's possible. It really is possible.
Yeah. And I think, even just the different age ranges and their relationships with screens, there are ways to pull back on some of that exposure and to input better things, So there's lots of research for young children between the ages of like 1 and 4 about the risks of screen time at all with them. And listen, I am an avid on the record Bluey super fan. I get it. And I get that it's fine to watch Bluey or whatever your show is with your kid once in a while. But I also know the temptation that I feel as a parent that when things get hard in parenting, it is so much easier to just put on a show or to show something on YouTube, and the kids will be immediately quieter, which sometimes in the moment is all I really want. But it's been a really good training process for me to learn how to tolerate short-term suffering in terms of the noise of my children for the sake of a long-term gain, for their development, for them not relying on a screen for soothing, even when they're teenagers. So maybe it's inserting some kind of a game or a toy, or just letting them play out in the backyard, unsupervised, quote unquote, just free play in the backyard where they're safe, but they also can run around and they can get bumps and bruises, whatever. When they're a little older as children, if there's a tendency to just want to chase down a phone of their own or mom and dad's phone to listen to music or to text their friends or whatever, inserting stuff that's really exciting and thrilling for them. And again, it's going to take work. It may not be something they're super excited about. Maybe it is cooking and baking. Maybe it's a musical instrument. Maybe it's climbing a tree out in the woods and falling off once in a while and getting a sprained ankle, but they grow and get tougher because of that, because they learn they can do tough things. Maybe it's going down to the store at the corner and getting a couple things that the family needs, but they feel this sense of like agency and supporting the family doing a grown-up thing, going shopping, in high school, instead of just throwing social media at them and giving them unfettered Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat access. Maybe there's stuff that we really do encourage them to do out in the real world. So like, not just, maybe they would go get a job somewhere, but what if you like went and shoveled the snow for your neighbors and you made money that way? What if you raked leaves and made money that way? Or what if you
didn't make money and just did it because it's kind?
What if you go to Sweet Ethel down the block and you just rake her leaves, and maybe you don't even tell her, but it needs to be done, so you just go do it, right? Like, you find ways to be connected and engaged. And again, as high schoolers, maybe you go see your friends in real life. Like, the year by year, the time that a high school and adolescent spends with their real life friends face to face has been declining for about a decade. So what does it mean to just like go to Steak and Shake or Chick-fil-A with your friends and sit with them?
What we do, we open up our home. We say to our kids, plan a night for this weekend. We will have a Marvel movie and a chili dinner at our house with our 2 oldest and a bunch of their friends. So it takes sacrifice, right? Like, we have to have an investment in it as well. But like, would I rather that than see our kids on the computer, chatting? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It takes work, but holy cow, you guys, is it worth it? My love,
yes.
How about some kind of a challenge by choice to get you and I
mean, I feel like there were
started
85 challenge by choices tucked in here, but
how would you summarize maybe?
One that I would say is like, I really love this spectrum that I feel like you're laying out for us of noticing where we're at, kind of from one end of no controls, right? Technology, kind of free range technology in my life and in my child's life, all the way down to like shut her down and lack of access, right?
If you can charge it, it's the devil.
lack of even giving them experience with it. So number one would be just like, noticing, beginning with that self-knowledge, right? Of like, where do I lean? Where do I kind of find myself? Where am I inclined to be on that spectrum? And just to be honest about that. And then to consider, okay, in light of that, and with a desire to maybe move more toward that difficult middle, that both and of being aware, being intentional, being engaged, and also helping yourself, helping your children to increase their dexterity around the world of technology and social media. Like, what would be a next step to move me toward a healthier balance? Maybe we would say integration of those two sides. I think that's a decent starting place.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. What direction do I need to move to help train my kids well to live in this technological world? And what's a good first step to move in that direction? I love that. That's great. Beautiful, babe. Well, why don't we pray for the good of all of our children and for us as parents?
Come on, guardian angels.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord Jesus, we praise you and we love you and we thank you for the gift that you've given us of this life that we lead, of the families that you have entrusted us with, and of these precious children that you have put in our lives. Lord, thank you for calling us to raise them with your help, to be an image of you in their lives and to lead them to you. And Lord, we pray for all of our children and for all parents who are hearing this, for their encouragement, for their consolation, and for their sense of agency and courage when it comes to navigating the really difficult conversations and interactions around technology and social media. Lord, I pray for your healing for those families who feel like they're weighed down by constant arguments and disagreements and divisions around technology. And I ask for the prayers in a particular way of Blessed Carlo Acutis, soon to be Saint Carlo, for his prayers for each of us, that we can use the tool of technology for your glory and experience the health and the wholeness that you desire for us along the way. We ask all this, Jesus, as always, in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Friends, we are always grateful for you. And you're welcome to find us on Instagram at This Whole Life Podcast. Again, it's not about never using social media. It's about using it in the way that it was designed. And Instagram was designed for you to send us messages. So look us up and by all means, feel free to download this episode, share it with a friend who's going through some of these same struggles that you and I both are as parents. And you can check us out online on our website at thiswholelifepodcast.com. On behalf of all of your children who cannot wait to hear what you have to say to them after this episode, I would like to say thank you, and God bless you, friends. We'll see you next time.
God bless
you. You're not alone. You're not alone.
This Whole Life is a production of the Martin Center for Integration. Visit us online at thiswholelifepodcast.com.
You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone.
3, This Whole Life, take 425.
Take 60, more like, but that's great.
I've only made us re-record like twice. That's pretty great.
That's true. Yeah, more like 70.
Hey!
For 60 episodes.
I've only done it like twice. Like twice.
You might be misremembering a little bit. It's not 10, but it's not twice either.
Gosh. I feel like my good name is being slandered here.
Ready?